So some of you might know who I am from that great introduction. Some of you might even read The Guardian and know who I am. But for those of you who haven't had the honour, I'm Jack. I write cookbooks and I write a recipe column for The Guardian. I did sort of suspect that was going to happen. I mean, I'm quite good at balancing stuff. I've got toddlers, but obviously... Never mind, let's carry on. And I often describe myself as an accidental and completely unprofessional food writer. With my other hat on, I'm Jack Monroe and I write about politics for the Daily Mirror. I debate on Question Time and... Hello? Standing at the part. I don't want to. Because then they can see me. Hi! And yeah, so I write about politics for the Daily Mirror and I've been on Question Time and Any Questions and various other bits and pieces. So people say to me, often I get cabbies who get quite intrigued about, they pick me up from 10 different places in a week and sometimes I'm in a set of chef's whites and sometimes I'm in a suit jacket and sometimes I look very stressed and sometimes it's 2 o'clock in the morning and they say, what do you actually do for a living? I'm like, well, food and politics and food politics and the politics of food. So food and politics, really. And they always want to start a conversation about how the two go together, and there's no real short answer. So for those of you that don't know my backstory, I'm going to give you a bit of information about where food and politics tied together and how they tied together for me. I tried to write it out in my notebook, and I didn't have time, so I'm going to now have a discussion about poverty from my iPad. Don't judge me. I have a job now and stuff, you know, I can have an iPad. It's, yeah, all that to one side, because I imagine that a lot of you aren't Daily Mail commentators, so won't get too het up about a bit of technology. But let's get serious now. As the realities of poverty in Britain and Ireland are almost indescribable to people who haven't experienced it for themselves. I mention Ireland because I've done a lot of work over in Northern Ireland and I've done a lot of different things over there with housing associations and communities as well. So it's not just an us thing, it's not just a London thing, it's not just a South End thing, it's an everywhere thing. But part of that everywhere thing is a blinkered disbelief that poverty, and especially food poverty, can't be happening in one of the richest economies in the world. I hear time and time again, there's no such thing, people just need to get a job, go out and get a job, get a bloody job. If you had a job, you'd be able to feed yourself, like it's a chosen thing, like people have chosen, actually, do you know, I'll go on the dole and I'll be a bit hungry and I'll write a blog about it and maybe Penguin will approach me and I'll get a book deal and I'll be rich and famous. You know, because that's a really solid career plan and I thoroughly recommend it. But poverty isn't a cosy frugality, it's not a make, do and mend attitude. And there's nothing cosy or nostalgic about missing days of meals, about turning your heating off for 2 consecutive winters and every bloody day and night in between. It's not a lifestyle choice, turning off the fridge because it's empty anyway. It's not a lifestyle choice, walking everywhere in the pouring rain in your only pair of shoes with a soaking wet and sobbing toddler dragging along behind you. It's not a lifestyle choice. There's nothing cosy and frugal about dragging that toddler into every pub and every shop in walking distance and asking them if there's any jobs available. There's nothing fun or enjoyable about going red as the person behind the counter looks at your dirty jeans and your dirty jumper that you've been wearing for days on end because they're the warmest things you own, shakes her head at you and tells you that there's no jobs. And you think you look a bit of a bloody mess anyway, so what she meant by that was there's no jobs for you. And after a day of that, you drag your toddler home again, you open your cupboard, you take out the last little bit of pasta, you take out the last half carton of chopped tomatoes, you put one on top of the other and you try not to chuck it at the wall when that toddler turns around to you and says, I don't want that, Mummy, I want something else. And there isn't anything else. And you're sitting across the table hoping that he leaves a little bit of it so that you can have a little bit of it because your benefits were delayed again, they were suspended again, you got one of those letters again that told you again that they didn't give you an explanation for it, but on the day that your housing benefit was due, actually they decided not to pay it because they were recalculating it again. That's not a lifestyle choice, and no one in their right mind would choose to do that. I calculated that I'd eaten about 30,000 meals in my lifetime before I started skipping them. That's an awful lot of meals. And you start to work out how many you've had when you don't have them anymore. You start to work out how much you've eaten when suddenly you're not eating anymore. And people say, how can food be political? Where is the politics in food? The politics in food is that when the supermarket puts their value range up and every item in that value range goes up 10p, when you've only got a fiver or a tenner, or as I did, you check your bank balance at the cash point before you walk into the supermarket and you see you've got £4.56 and you walk around the supermarket spending your £4.56 because you haven't got an overdraft. People don't give you an overdraft when you don't have a job. And it takes an hour and a half to spend £4.56 in a supermarket on something you might be able to cobble together into meals in a week. It's very easy to spend 100 quid in one go. It's very hard to spend £4.56. And people still say to me it doesn't exist. People still say to me that it's only the scroungers and the skivers and the unemployed that are at food banks, not our cleaners and our teachers, the people that stack those supermarket shelves in the first place on 0-hour contracts that can't afford to buy the food that they're putting out day in, day out. People say to me, where are the politics in food? What are you doing? You're loaded now, you've got a book deal, you were #1 on Amazon, why do you care? I'm not loaded. And that book deal that I signed in February 2013, I'm still fighting for the royalties for it. I got my advance, yes. I got a bit of a salary for it, yes. But I haven't had anything else. People make mistaken assumptions about you because you've got a smart jumper that you borrowed off your girlfriend. People make mistaken assumptions out of you because you're a recipe columnist or you dare to grow some kale in your back garden and make it into a pesto. The politics of food are classist. Poor people can't eat kale, they say. Poor people can't eat carbonara or feijoada or ribollita. On the Guardian's own website, I read day in, day out that I'm pretentious because I dare to make peasant food from countries like Italy and Brazil and give them nice names in the hope that maybe people might realise that you can put some little scraps together and make them into something that you can be proud of. Where's the politics in food, people say? It's about choosing to buy free-range meat and eggs, because actually you don't need meat and eggs, really, day in, day out in your diet. And just because you haven't got very much money doesn't mean you have to make the wrong choices. Where's the politics in food, people say? Get a bloody job, people say. Get off your arse, people say. You're pretentious, people say. But if you're one of those people that thinks that kale is pretentious, or that poor people shouldn't be eating carbonara, or that all the problems lie with actually everybody just needs to get a bloody job, I would challenge you to go back to the beginning and read a post on my blog called Hunger Hurts. And I've not got time to do it now because I've just been given my 14-second warning to read it out. But to say to you that actually it doesn't matter whether you've got a smart jumper or a smart coat, or if you once had a good job, or if you can cook or you can't cook, or you like ribollita or feijoada, or actually just pasta with tomato sauce on. Food is a lot more political than people think it is, and a lot of that comes down to our own deeply held class notions and judgments that we make about what people can and can't be eating, what they should and shouldn't be eating, and judging people who might stab a ready meal with a fork at the end of a hard day's work and telling them they're just not good enough. Thank you.